Episode 1, it spoke her name. They say only the faithful hear God's voice, but Ava never believed, and he spoke to her first. It happened on a Tuesday. She was cleaning out her late mother's attic dust, dead spiders, unopened boxes of a life she never understood. Ava hadn't prayed since she was 12. She didn't even know how anymore. But as she slid an old chest out from beneath a pile of forgotten blankets, something shifted. Not the box, the room. The light dimmed, the air thickened, and in the silence between her heartbeat and the next, a voice, a deep, ancient, unmistakably echoed in her chest. Ava. She dropped the box. Frowsy. No one else was in the house. She told herself it was grief, exhaustion, maybe dehydration. She hadn't eaten. She hadn't slept. She hadn't cried since the funeral, and it was probably overdue. But then she heard it again. You were not supposed to forget me. This time, it didn't echo from the attic. It whispered from within her. Ava stumbled backward, her mouth dry, her vision sharp. The world didn't spin, it hummed, as if reality itself was vibrating under a new frequency. When only she could hear, she bolted, slammed the attic door, locked it, as if that could hold something that was already inside her. She didn't sleep that night, not out of fear, out of attention. The voice didn't return, at least not until she tried to ignore it. 2 days passed, then came the dream. She stood in a field of ash, barefoot. Above her, the sky bled gold, and 1,000 burnt crosses rose like jagged bones from the earth. Each one whispered a different name, her name, over and over, until one began to scream. She woke up sobbing, and the voice returned, louder than before, not angry but grieved. I gave you breath, you gave me doubt. Ava couldn't speak, her throat seized. She felt, watched, not by something evil, not even by something good, but by something eternal. She opened the attic again the next morning, and there it was, chest she'd touched before, unlocked, open. Inside, a single notebook, her mother's, but the handwriting was not hers. The cover read, For the Daughter Who Forgot His Name. Episode 2, The Notebook of Forgotten Prayers. The notebook didn't belong to her mother. It belonged to something older. Ava Saturday cross-legged on the attic floor, the dust thick enough to choke on, the air buzzed with tension, like the silence before a scream. She stared at the leather-bound book in her hands, the cover trembling with age or something else. Her name was stitched on the inside, not written, stitched, in red thread. Ava Lynn Halbert, prayer line severed, entry initiated. She hadn't prayed in over a decade, not after her mother got sick, not after the church sent casseroles instead of help, not after the chemo bills piled higher than faith. She flipped the first page, blank, second page, blank, then the third, and it wasn't blank, it spoke. The words pulsed beneath the paper like veins. One sentence, trembling as she read. You are not the first daughter who stopped believing, but you may be the last. Her breath caught. Below the sentence was a symbol etched, not drawn, a spiral wrapped in thorns, bleeding ink into the parchment. She touched it, and the attic groaned. The temperature dropped. The silence collapsed, and the voice returned. But this time, not in her ears. In the notebook, the words bled themselves into existence as the voice filled her skull. I do not require belief to speak. I require blood. Yours has not yet been spent. The page turned on its own. Another sentence appeared. Write one prayer, even in doubt, and I will answer. Ava stood, but the notebook came with her. It was in her backpack, then her car, then somehow, on the kitchen table, wherever she went. It followed without footsteps, without noise, just presence. She thought about throwing it in the fireplace, but part of her didn't want to know what might come out of the flame. So that night, she gave in. Saturday at the table, opened the book, picked up a pen, and wrote, If you're real, prove it. Nothing happened. She laughed, shaky, bitter, but the notebook turned its own page and wrote back, Tomorrow, 3:17 p.m., under the clock tower. That night, she didn't dream, because it did. Episode 3, The Clock Tower Promise. You don't expect a miracle to show up on time, but 3:17 p.m. came like a blade. Ava didn't want to go. She almost didn't. By 3:15, she was still in her car, parked a block away from the clock tower that loomed over town like an old, forgotten sentinel. It hadn't worked in years, its hand stuck at midnight like some cruel joke. She checked her phone. 3:16. She told herself she'd give it a minute, just a minute. Then, she'd walk away, but something inside her pulsed deep, ancient, terrifying, not fear, not hope, recognition. She got out of the car. The streets were nearly empty. The summer heat pressed against her chest like a warning. Pigeons scattered as she approached the tower steps. The sky above had clouded over fast, casting everything in dull gold. She stood there, waiting. 3:17. Nothing. No light. No thunder. Not even a whisper. She laughed under her breath. Of course nothing would happen. She turned to leave, and that's when she saw him. An man standing across the street, not moving, not blinking, dressed in black head to toe, a long coat, bare hands, no phone, no bag, but in his hand, the notebook. Her notebook, the one she left at home. Eva frowned. He lifted the book slowly, offering it with one hand. His mouth didn't move, but she heard the voice again, not in her mind. Behind her, a whisper from the tower. He bears the answer. She turned back toward the door, nose slightly ajar. Though no one had opened it, she looked again. The man was gone. Only the notebook remained resting on the lowest step. She picked it up. It was heavier, wet. She opened to the marked page, and there it was, a photograph of her, taken from above, from this exact spot, just seconds ago. She dropped the book in shock, stumbling backward, and then the clock tower began to chime. Once, twice, 3 times. Eva looked up, trembling. The hands had moved to 3:17. They had working years, but they did now. And as the final chime rang out, the voice returned, it soft this time, but booming, divine, unforgiving. You asked me to prove myself. A pause. Now I will ask something of you. Episode 4, the first command. They say when God speaks, you kneel. Eva didn't. She clenched the notebook in her hands, every instinct in her body screaming to throw it into the street, to run until she forgot what 3:17 meant. But she didn't move. Not yet. The voice had changed. It no longer whispered like a ghost. It thundered like something carved into the bones of the universe had found its breath again. Right. Eva looked down at the open page. Blank now. The photograph gone. The dampness too. The page almost glowed under the fading sunlight, as if backlit by something beneath it. Something buried. She reached for her pen like it wasn't her hand anymore, and she wrote, "What do you want?" The ink spread fast, like blood in water. The new words appeared. A warning. She swallowed. Her fingers trembled. To who? The book answered instantly. The woman in the red jacket. Do not let her enter her house tonight. Eva blinked. That was it. She looked around. Nothing but the wind and the rustle of leaves. The clouds began to churn. Heavy now. Threatening thunder. The streets were still empty. No woman, no red jacket. Until a flash of movement across the plaza. Stepping out of a flower shop. A woman mid-40s. Brunette. Holding a bouquet of white lilies, wearing a red jacket. Eva's mouth went dry. Coincidence? Test? She watched as the woman walked toward the street, keys in hand, calm, unaware, and Eva ran, crossed the road without thinking, nearly tripping over the curb. Excuse me, she shouted. The woman stopped, startled, friendly smile. Yes, Eva frowned. What was she supposed to say? A voice in my attic notebook told me not to let you go home tonight. She hesitated, then blurted out, there's a gas leak down your street. You work with the city. You shouldn't go home. The woman's smile faded. A gas leak? Eva nodded, heart hammering. The woman hesitated, then sighed. Christ, my luck. Thank you, I guess. She turned around, walked toward a nearby cafe instead. Eva stood frowning in the street. Every instinct told her to turn the page. She did. A new sentence had appeared. Obedience is belief in motion. Now you've heard me. Soon, they will too. Thunder cracked across the sky. The clock tower behind her struck once more, and Eva knew this was only the first command. Episode 5, the house that wasn't saved. She followed the voice, and the voice kept its word, but not all of it. That night, Eva couldn't sleep, not from fear but from clarity. She had listened, she had obeyed, she had warned, and something inside her had shifted, like a string that had been loose her whole life finally pulled taut. But belief, she was learning, was not peace, it was pressure. At 1:13 a.m., she jolted upright. The air had changed. Still, heavy, expectant. She reached for the notebook on her nightstand. A new message bled onto the page as she opened it. You saved her, but the house still remembers. Eva's skin prickled. She knew which house. The woman in the red jacket house. And suddenly, she felt pulled. Not emotionally, physically. Her chest ached with urgency, like she was being dragged forward by invisible hands. She got dressed. No questions, no hesitation. I want 47. She stood across the street from the woman's home. Suburban, knees, lights off, silent, but something was wrong. The inside of the house flickered, not light, flame. A single candle glowed behind the upstairs window. then 2, then 20, flittering like stars choking on air. Then, the front door creaked open on its own. She didn't want to go in, but the notebook in her hand vibrated soft, steady, undeniable. So she crossed the street, stepped inside, and entered a memory that wasn't hers. The house had changed. It wasn't abandoned. It was alive. Photos lined the hallway, her own face among strangers. Ava as a child, Ava at 10, Ava crying at 17 in a hospital gown. None of it had ever happened, and yet she remembered all of it. Then the voice came, not above, not below, but behind her eyes. This house was meant to burn. She turned. The living room was engulfed in fire. Silent fire, cold fire. It didn't spread. It just existed, and in the center of it, sitting cross-legged, was a man, smiling, holding the red jacket. Ava tried to scream, but her voice had been swallowed. The man spoke, not to her but through her. She should have died. You disrupted what was written. The notebook flew open in her hand. Correction will cost. The flames inched toward her, not burning but pulling like gravity made of judgment. Ava dropped the notebook, and it burst into light. Not fire, not smoke. Revelation. She collapsed on the porch, gasping, lungs full of something older than air. Behind her, the house returned to silence. No candles, no man, no flame. Just a home again, but the door closed softly like it had watched her leave. Episode 6, Correction will cost. Every miracle has a receipt. Ava was starting to understand that. The house had returned to normal. The woman in the red jacket never knew how close death had come, but Ava had seen it, touched it. And now the voice was quiet, not gone, just waiting. That was worse. For 3 days, the notebook didn't open. Its cover stayed warm, like a body with a heartbeat, but no ink appeared, no commands, no dreams, silence, until the cost came. At 12 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. No voice, no sound, just one word typed across her screen. Repay. The call ended itself. She opened the notebook in a panic. This time, the message was already waiting. What is spared must be replaced. Her stomach turned. What does that mean? She wrote, the pen trembling. The answer came slowly, line by line, like it was being considered. You saved her, but her thread is not removed. It is only transferred. Transferred. Ava flipped the page. A single sentence burned itself into view. You are the vessel. Then her phone buzzed again. A photo of her, sleeping, taken from across the room. She was alone, or she thought she was. She turned, heart leaping. Nothing there, nothing visible, but her ears began to ring. That same vibration from the attic, the one that meant he was listening. She opened her mouth to speak, but someone else's voice came out. Offer, just that. Then silence. She ran to the sink, splashed cold water on her face. When she looked up into the mirror, her reflection was holding the notebook open, a page she hadn't written on. The title at the top, names Ava would trade for her own. She screamed, backed away. The mirror cracked. The list was blank, for now, but she knew what it meant. He had given her life. Now he wanted names. And somewhere deep inside, where her doubts used to live, something darker was forming. A part of her that was already wondering who deserves to be spared less than her. Episode 7, the first name on the list. She never meant to write it, but her hand did. The notebook waited on her. Nightstand unopened. Unread, but breathing. That's how it felt now. Alive, watching, expecting. 4 days. Ava ignored it. She stopped going to work, stopped calling people back, stopped answering when her mother texted. She was afraid that if she touched the notebook again, he would answer before she asked. But the world didn't wait. At 4:33 p.m., while Ava sat motionless on the couch, the notebook opened itself. One page, one heading, the first name on the list. The rest of the page was blank, until she blinked. Then her hand moved. Not slowly, not forcefully, delicately, like a pianist returning to a familiar song. She fought it, but the pen was already in her grip. She didn't remember picking it up. And then, she was writing, letter by letter. Derek Calloway, her ex, the one who left her in the hospital while her mother died, the one who never said goodbye. She dropped the pen, breath shallow, eyes wide. I didn't mean to, she whispered. The notebook didn't care. New text formed below his name. Offer accepted. Correction scheduled. Ava's throat clenched. No, she wrote frantically. It was a mistake. Take it back. The page refused to absorb her plea. The ink didn't spread. It just Saturday dead. Dry. Ignored. And then her phone buzzed. A news alert. Local man hospitalized after mysterious fall. Derek Calloway in critical condition. No witnesses. She screamed. shoved the notebook away, but her own handwriting followed her, scrawled across the window, reflected in the TV screen, etched in condensation on the mirror. You wrote him, you wrote him, you wrote him. Her hands were clean, but her soul was red. The voice returned that night. Quieter now, less thunder, more whisper. You obeyed before you believed. Now you believe before you repent. The notebook pulsed beside her like a living wound, and a new page turned itself, blank again, waiting for the next name. Episode 8, What She Deserves. They always said hell was a place, but Ava was starting to think it was a choice. The notebook had grown quieter since Derek's accident, but not peaceful like the moment after lightning, when the air is still holding its breath. She tried to ignore it, burned it, buried it, locked it in the freezer like some ancient evil she could trap in ice. It kept returning to her table, to her lap, to her dreams. Every time she opened her eyes, it was closer. She woke one morning with a new message inked across her arm, written in a script she didn't recognize but understood anyway. He paid, but you owe. She wanted to scream, to repent, to forget, but then came the knock. Her front door, 8:40 a.m. She peeked through the peephole. Her mother, tired, gentle, smiling like she used to before the cancer. Ava, she called. Sweetheart, you haven't returned my calls. Ava frowned. See, that voice, that warmth. The one person who had never left her, never doubted her even when Ava had doubted everything. Even God, even herself. She reached for the door, but the notebook flipped open on its own. On the kitchen table behind her, a new page, a heading, What She Deserves. No name, not yet, just a blank line. The pen rolled toward her. She shook her head. No. The voice in her chest whispered softly. Every spared soul creates a weight. She is heavy with grace. Ava turned toward the door. Her mother knocked again. Honey, I brought food. That soup you like. Ava wept. How could God ask this of her? Not him. Not even the monster in the tower, but the thing behind the notebook. The thing pretending to be a god. She stepped forward, lifted the notebook, ripped the page clean out. It screamed in her hands like skin being peeled from bone. The walls around her shook. Blood pooled across the floor. Not her mother's. It came from the ceiling, from the sky. The voice thundered. Grace rejected. Price doubled. Ava collapsed. When she came to, the page was gone. The door was still closed. Her mother gone too. She opened the door, ran into the street. No trace, no car, no dishes, no knock. Just a whisper on the wind. You don't choose who lives, only who pays. And behind her, the notebook flipped to a fresh page. Title, The Daughter Who Disobeyed Twice. Episode 9, The Silence of the Obedient. Obedience was never quiet, not in her world, not anymore. After her mother vanished, Ava didn't speak for 3 days, not out of fear, but because she knew someone else was listening. The notebook lay shut on her desk, but she could feel it watching her, not the object what was inside it, a hunger that knew how to wait. She didn't touch it, didn't write, but the world around her began to fracture. Voices vanished mid-sentence. Phones stopped ringing. Radios played nothing, but Statishev and her thoughts began to feel muted, as if someone had turned the volume of reality all the way down. And the worst part, no one noticed. She walked through her neighborhood. People moved like marionettes in a dream. Their mouths opened, but no sound came. Even the wind stopped whispering. It was like the world had entered a hush meant for judgment. She returned home and found the notebook wide open on her bed. One phrase, written in massive, jagged letters across the pages. The obedient do not speak, they surrender. She wanted to scream. She wanted to curse whatever this God thing was, but her voice failed her. Her throat refused. The only thing that worked now was her pen. So she wrote, What are you? Who are you really? The ink hesitated then bled down the page, as if the question had insulted it. Then the answer came, one word at a time. I am what remains when faith dies. She stared, heart pounding. Then why choose me? She wrote. The reply chilled her blood, because even your disbelief was pure, and I needed a vessel without illusions. Tears welled in her eyes. For what? The next page turned by itself. A new title, The Reaping Begins. Below it, a single list. Names, down scenes of them. People Ava knew, vaguely. Old classmates, an old professor, a rude cashier, a priest from her childhood. Her name was not at the top. It was at the center, surrounded, like a heart waiting to be pierced. Suddenly silence broke. A scream echoed through the neighborhood. Then another. Sirens, dogs barking, car alarms wailing like metal warning. She rushed outside. Flames. 4 houses on her street. Burning. No heat. No smoke. Just fire white and slow, like grief made visible. And then the voice returned. not inside her, all around her. The silence is over. The harvest speaks. She looked down. The notebook now had one new heading: How She Ends. Episode 10. The harvest speaks. Judgment doesn't fall like lightning. It spreads quietly, patiently, like rot under the skin. The street was chaos. Flames danced without smoke. People screamed without sound. Dogs barked. Sirens howled. But it all felt disconnected, like the world had slipped off its own axis and now spun on something far more ancient, far more personal. Ava stood in the middle of it all, clutching the notebook against her chest like a stolen child. She wasn't sure if she was the prophet or the weapon anymore. The heading still burned on the open page: How She Ends. But nothing had been written beneath it. Not yet, because the voice was waiting for her to write it herself. Inside the flames, she saw shapes, not shadows, figures, walking through fire, untouched, faceless, tall, wrapped in robes that shimmered like water-reflecting stars. They weren't screaming, they were speaking, but not to the people, to her, and she understood every word. You were not chosen to be spared. You were chosen to carry the sound of wrath. Ava fell to her knees. This wasn't prophecy. It was punishment. A woman next to her reached, outburned, bleeding, begging for help. But Ava's hands wouldn't move. The notebook flipped a page. New text wrote itself furiously, as if the entity inside had grown impatient. Your silence has spoken. Now your name will be the sound that ends others. No, Ava scrawled desperately. This isn't what I wanted. The reply came instantly. You should not have written Derek. You should not have torn the page. You should not have refused your offering. The flames grew. The figures approached. They walked without footsteps, and the earth withered behind them. Then what am I now? Ava cried. The page darkened, cracked, and the answer bled upward from the crease. You are the page. You are the pen. You are the punishment they asked for in secret. And Ava knew she had not been speaking to God. She had been speaking to something that came after God, the thing that filled the silence it left behind. The harvest didn't just speak now. It sang a terrible song, sun in her voice, and the last line on the page glowed as the wind began to scream. She believed too late, so they will believe through her. Episode 11. Those who whisper her name. Some people are remembered by what they did. Ava would be remembered by what they became after her. The fire had stopped, the smoke had never come, and the silence seemed eerie. Once holy was now filled with whispers, but they weren't whispers of prayer. They were invitations. Strangers passing on the street looked at Ava now with something between awe and dread. They didn't speak to her, they just mouthed her name. Ava, 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 as if saying it out loud might wake something inside her, or summon it again, because she wasn't just the girl who had heard the voice. She was now the proof that something else was speaking. The notebook had stopped opening on its own. Now it, wait, obedient, reverent, patient, it no longer wrote without her hand. It knew it didn't need to. Ava understood what it wanted now. It had never wanted her to believe. It had wanted her to surrender. She sat in her apartment, curtains drawn, phone turned off, and listened, not to the world, but to them, the ones outside, the ones whispering. She heard them through the walls, through the water pipes, in the wires of the lamps, in the voice of the television static when she flipped through dead channels. Always the same rhythm, a heartbeat made of syllables. She heard, she obeyed, she bled. We follow. What do they want from me? She wrote. The notebook responded slowly now, like it was savoring her curiosity. They want your silence, so they can't speak it. Speak what? Judgment. Through your name. The pen slipped from her fingers. She stood, staggering to the bathroom, splashing her face with water. When she looked up, her reflection had no mouth, just skin, smooth, pale, quiet, but it smiled and whispered inside her head. You're almost ready. She screamed. No sound. The mirror cracked down the center. Back in the living room, the notebook had turned a page. A list was being written, not by her hand, not anymore. Names, hundreds, and at the bottom glowing in faint crimson. And those who whisper her name shall be marked by it. Suddenly, her apartment filled with a hum, not loud, not sharp, just endless, like the world was now tuned to her frequency, and something was dialing in. Episode 12. When the silence becomes flesh. First came the whispers, then the silence. Now, it had found skin. Ava no longer dreamed. She watched, night after night. She drifted not into sleep, but into vision. She saw people ordinary, broken, bitter, writing her name in dust, on mirrors, in steam rising from kitchen sinks. Some prayed, some cursed, all of them obeyed. The silence that once haunted her had spread. It didn't just live inside her anymore. It were them. Neighbors who once waved now walked past with glassy eyes and bloodied fingertips. They didn't speak. They only mouthed, "Ava, Ava, Ava," but she couldn't tell if they feared her or if they were becoming her. She stopped checking the notebook. It didn't need her touch anymore. It Saturday open on her desk, pages turning in windless air, as if some invisible hand was preparing scripture. Then, it happened. At exactly 3:33 a.m., her apartment went still. Not quiet dead. The fridge stopped humming. The fan halted mid-spin. Even her own heartbeat seemed to muffle. And, knocking, not at the door, from inside the walls, from beneath the floor, from behind her own skin. She fell to the ground, convulsing, choking on breath she couldn't catch. The notebook flipped violently to a blank page, and with no pen in sight, her blood began to write, letter by letter. When the silence becomes flesh, she will no longer be the speaker. She will be the sound. Her mouth opened willingly and a voice came out. Not hers, not human. A chorus, low, eternal, awful. It is written. The vessel is formed. The windows shattered. The mirrors cracked. The lights exploded into ash. Ava rose in it by her own will. Her spine pulled straight. Her arms opened wide. And then the voice one she first heard in the attic returned. Is oft, regretful. I chose you because you did not believe. Now they will believe because of you. Her skin rippled like wet parchment. She looked into the hallway mirror. No reflection, only a dark figure, standing in her place, smiling, breathing, wearing her silence like a crown. Episode 13. And she spoke nothing again. They never found Ava's body, because what was left wasn't her. It began with a name. It ended with a silence so loud it rewrote the world. The morning after 3:33 a.m., her neighbors awoke to find her apartment door wide open. Lights flickering, walls humming, the floor soaked in a thin layer of black water that smelled like burnt paper and wet copper. No blood, no note, no Ava. Only a single object remained untouched. The notebook. It's Saturday in the center of her bed, closed now, breathing softly, waiting, and people came. First the police, then the reporters, then the ones who whispered. They all said the same thing when they stood in the room. She was here. We heard her. We still do. And they did. Through vents, through wires, through dreams. She spoke to no one, but she was in everyone. Across town, in a hospital bed, Derek Calloway opened his eyes for the first time in weeks and screamed because Ava was standing in the corner of his room, mouth shut, eyes black, face flickering like a broken screen, and gone. At a church on the edge of town, the priest locked the doors and wept at the altar. He heard her voice in the Psalms, not above, below. At 11:11 p.m., every radio station in the city cut out for 33 seconds, only static. Then a whisper, you were warned. The notebook reappeared in a different city, a different home, another attic, another daughter. The first page read, for the girl who never believed, and will believe too late. And the voice returned, same tone, same weight, same promise. Speak, and I will answer. Write, and I will come. Ava's name was never spoken aloud again. Not by those who knew her, not by those who feared her, because somewhere deep in the hum of silence beneath power lines, behind mirror glass, between the beats of your own heart, she is still listening. And if you say her name, she might just answer,